Pop, 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 pass the popcorn, 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 pass the popcorn.
Hello and welcome back to Pass the Popcorn. I am your host for today, Brennan Klein, and I'm here as most of the time, as usual, with Carrie Jarasinski, the casual moviegoer. How's it going, Carrie?
I'm good. Now that we're all settled, full transparency, since it's just Brennan and I, Brennan is very, very patient, but there was a little bit of uptime to get our recording equipment going because I don't know. I think I'm still living on DOS and like floppy disks. I don't know. This whole system is too much for me, and I have a new appreciation for Rob and the effort that he puts into bringing the show to life.
Yeah. Carrie brought all these punch cards and they just weren't helping us set up the audio.
I know. I was like, where's the manual? Does anyone know where the manual is for this? There's so many buttons and so many components here. I'm certain that I have messed something up on here as well too. So we're probably like either super loud. There's probably sound effects going off right now, unknown. But
we sound like chipmunks or something.
That'll be kind of amazing. So TBD on how this turns out, but I'm excited to be chatting. I'm glad we're both here. It's a good end to the week.
Yes, I'm so excited too. I mean, we haven't done a solo one together since back in the days of that other what was that other Take Two?
The show that
our
Take Twos. I know this is such a hodgepodge, but I kind of like it. I think I need a catch-all in my mind for like, how am I going to get a chance to talk about like, I don't know, the weird things that happen throughout the week or like stuff we're listening to or like, hey, I saw this cool show, and I always feel a little bit limited. So the good thing is I feel like this is like free range. Like we can just bring it all, pull it all out.
Yeah. And as Carrie was saying, today we're going to be, as the main part of this episode, we're going to be doing a book and everything else club. Basically, we're going to be catching up on everything we've been doing that has nothing to do with movies. But this is a movie podcast, so of course we are starting with worth mentioning. Carrie, out of the movies you've seen since you last recorded, do you have a number on how many you saw, or do you just want to throw out your title?
So I think I've seen 0. I think I've actually.
Oh no! Okay.
I've seen actually 0. So Rob, I know on our last episode, Rob started talking about a little bit about the movie project that he's working on. So he's been in Ohio the entire week, scouting locations and prancing and probably having lots of cappuccinos. Who knows? I don't know.
You know, like Ohioans do.
Like they do in Ohio. And
he's having the chili or the spaghetti with the chili on top.
Oh, what is that called? Is that like the chili mac? Or
Isn't
no?
it just like Cincinnati chili?
Cincinnati chili. I don't know. I'm sure that he's having so much chili and loving life. And then I'm still back here sort of hanging on by a thread. And so in that, I have other things that I watch when Rob's not here. I don't want to tell him
your
that.
Kids?
Like, yeah, right. Like my kids, like the dishes, like the laundry. No. But I have like guilty pleasure TV that I like to watch that he is like fine with, but he usually will be like, we should watch a movie or something like that. So I just binge watch all that kind of stuff and stare at the wall. So.
Okay. Well, I mean, that stuff we'll talk about in the next segment. So I guess I'll start with my worth mentioning.
Well, to be fair, I was going to bring a movie. I did come prepared. Have I talked about The Bad Guys yet?
I think it came up in passing, but not in a real way.
Let's
talk about it.
So that's what I was going to bring that. I saw that like a week and a half ago, probably. But that is the newest. I don't even know if it's the newest. It's an animated movie that's in theaters right now. And it's let me tell you what it's about. It's a Ocean's 11 meets Animals meets, a little bit of a love story, maybe. I don't know. But it's this little group of animals that gets together. It's like a wolf, it's a shark, it's a snake, it's some other, maybe a lizard-like thing. They come together to do a heist, but along the way, they establish whether or not stealing and theft is really the moral high ground that they're looking for. And to be honest, I did see it about a week and a half ago. at the time I came out high on it because I was like, this was super cute and it was super sweet and everyone else is going to crap on it, so I'm going to support it. And then now I don't actually remember what happened at all.
No, that's okay. I'm curious about this movie because when Tim mentioned it in his like monthly report of what's coming out, he said it had some interesting looking animation techniques, and in the alternate ending Discord, people seem to be agreeing with him. And I don't know what they're talking about because I saw the trailer for this and it looked like just any other shitty CG animated movie, but maybe I wasn't paying close enough attention because it was a kid's movie I knew I wasn't going to see, so I wasn't like poring over every frame.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the most notable thing, and I won't put any technical terms around what any of this means, like maybe it means something to somebody. It feels a lot like Sing. Like the animation feels kind of like Sing, so whatever that is doing. But then it takes some of the animation and sort of mutes it. And that's also not a term, but like simplifies it. So like as an example, like certain elements will be really detailed and crisp. And then like the teeth have no slats in between them, like lines.
Oh.
Like, does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
Like it simplifies the animation in certain areas, or like the eyes are just flat. Like they're flat yellow circles with like a black dot down the middle versus like a more realistic eyeball. So I don't know. But then other elements of like the actual scenery and even elements of the actual characters, like the way that they're dressed or like other components of their character are more polished.
Okay, that is more interesting. I will rewatch the trailer and reserve judgment. I probably still won't watch the movie.
I don't think you'd love it. I don't think you would. Yeah.
No, I don't know.
It's not doing anything special for sure. But if you do have kids and need to get out of your house, it's worth a like $5 Tuesday experience.
Great. Good to know.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just slapped Fantastic Beasts 3 out of the #1 slot for the weekend, which greatly amused me.
Oh, did it? Interesting. Are people burned out on Fantastic Beasts?
Well, two things about Fantastic Beasts. First of all, J.K. Rowling is a raging Twitter monster, and I don't want her to make any money.
Oh, right. I forgot about that.
And
yes.
Second of all, the second Fantastic Beasts is one of the worst, like, big budget films ever made. It is deeply incoherent and bad.
Is interesting. I haven't seen it, and I would protest, but I didn't even really affiliate her with those movies. I just didn't see them. I don't know why I didn't, but that's interesting. So is she canceled completely, like not on Twitter anymore, or what's her situation?
She's on Twitter, which is why she keeps posting fresh new takes on why she hates trans people.
Oh, like she's continuing with the trend.
Oh yeah, no, she thinks she's. You know what? I don't really want to talk about it.
No.
That's not what I came here to talk about.
No, yeah.
We'll talk about this off air.
Tell me off air. We'll talk about it off air just because I thought maybe it was like I made one mistake and I would leave. But now, okay, we'll talk about this another time. So actively avoid the next Fantastic Beasts, possibly avoid the bad guys, but maybe see it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it seems like much more interesting than I would have given it credit for just from seeing the trailer, and that's great. For me, for worth mentioning, since we last recorded, I have seen 13 movies, but if you cut out the ones that are slasher movies, I have seen 4 movies.
That's fair though. This is the horror time of year. Just leading into summer is the time to like really beef up on your gore. So
yeah, I mean, well, Tim has the Summer of Blood, so it's an AE brand.
Yes. So what's the favorite thing that you saw?
The thing I want to talk about is 2009's The Proposal, the rom-com with Sandra Bullock and Ryan Reynolds.
Is this the first time you saw it?
No. I saw it back in theaters, but I haven't seen it since then. So it's been over a decade since I saw this movie.
Oh my gosh. How does it hold up?
It holds up much better than I thought it would. Not perfectly. But yeah, so basically for those of you who haven't seen it, Sandra Bullock is, she's playing Meryl Streep from The Devil Wears Prada. That is the character that she is.
Yes.
Working in publishing. She's a super mean boss. She is a Canadian immigrant, and through machinations with her work visa, she needs to get married or be deported to Canada, essentially. So she coerces her assistant, Ryan Reynolds, like bribes and blackmails him essentially. Like she's got the carrot and the stick into pretending to be in love with her and say that they're engaged and get married so she can stay in the country. And of course, they have to go to his family's gorgeous house in Alaska and do a bunch of wacky hijinks. And of course, they end up falling in love because they're beautiful people and they're straight, and that's just what you do.
That's how it works. Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah. So that's what this is about. There are moments that, don't hold up great. There was one that I did remember, which is like Betty White's character has like Native American ancestry that's very questionable.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah. She does the dancing.
Yeah, but that scene is much shorter than I remembered it being. And then there's a character played by Oscar Nunez from The Office who's like, I wouldn't say he's a stereotype per se, because I don't know what he'd be stereotyping, but it's just a really weird role and he's kind of just humiliating himself. And what's really peculiar is he kind of did the exact same thing in The Lost City with Sandra Bullock. So he just keeps popping up in Sandra Bullock rom-coms where she's in the publishing industry to just embarrass himself, and I don't know why.
What? I need to know more. Now that you've drawn this comparison, I forgot that he was in both of those things. And yes, plays very similar characters. I had completely forgotten that he was in The Proposal for sure. But I wonder if he has some connection to Sandra Bullock, that like she pulls him in for these stereotype roles or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. It just seems mean. Maybe she hates him.
I don't know.
Anyway, but beyond that, okay, look, would I say that The Proposal is an extremely funny movie? No, probably not. But it is one of the last best like formula rom-coms that we got. Like this kind of big budget, exactly what all the beats are going to be, and that's why it's satisfying. And everyone is perfectly cast. None of them are taxing themselves beyond the things that they are good at doing. But Ryan Reynolds and Sandra Bullock are great. I don't know. Look, it takes me. I'm very, very strict with responding to a romantic relationship in a film. Like most romantic relationships don't move me in movies. It has to be something really special.
Yeah.
And this one doesn't really move me either. Like I'm not crying at the end of The Proposal, but I think they have very good chemistry, especially when they get to play off each other in a really like prickly, bitter way in the beginning.
Yes. And
then everyone else, it's like, it was just it must have been the easiest casting session because they had a lot of money, so they could just get anyone. So it's like, who plays the mom? Mary Steenburgen, of course. Who plays the dad? Craig T. Nelson. And it's just like, everyone is just, and this is the movie that kind of brought Betty White to my generation, because I had never seen Golden Girls, but this is the kind of kickoff of her kind of coming back and becoming a meme. And she was then on, Hot in Cleveland or whatever she did after that.
This is shocking. The most shocking thing you're going to tell me today is that you haven't watched Golden Girls. That's the most hot take that people will get today.
I'm sorry. It is a thing that all of the gays in my life like Golden Girls, and I'm very happy for them. But it ended before I was born, so it wasn't on,
But it's not even. It's a widespread phenomenon of like, oh, I just have to watch it. Like this joke is not going to play, but the mom in this, the best joke, and everybody uses it now. Everybody, where she was like, she's telling everybody about like her night or whatever, and the mom, who's the oldest character supposedly, like, or plays the oldest character, comes in and she's like, every morning at 7:30 I pee like clockwork, and then they're like, oh, thanks for sharing, and she's like, too bad I don't wake up till 8. And it is like, I did not deliver that in any way that it was funny, but in the show, I just remember being like, oh my gosh, it's their dynamic is just hilarious and cute, and you should at least give it 1 or 2 shows to see if it sticks.
Yeah, no, I totally should. And we'll talk about what I've been up to as far as TV momentarily.
That's true.
But I just haven't gotten around to it. And not that I am in no way against it, and I've seen clips and I'm amused by most of them. So I'm sure I'll circle my way around the Golden Girls eventually.
You said one thing that before we move on, I need to know. So you said you're slow to warm to romantic comedies or like romance movies. What is the one that jumps to mind that you were like, it really got you? Like, do you have one romance that you're like, yeah, this hit the mark. I am crying. This resonated with me.
Okay, well, let a little bit more background. I love rom-coms in general, but it takes a lot for me to specifically get into a couple on screen.
Yep.
And be moved by that. I don't know. This is like not the thing to say anymore, but La La Land was one I really responded to.
Why is that not the thing to say? I feel like it's the perfect thing to say.
Well, people have turned on La La Land in a big way that I don't appreciate. Largely because of the way that it was at the time in conversation with Moonlight, my God. And because of the way that, Ryan Gosling is this mansplainy, jazz-obsessed white guy. And it's like, yeah, that is an annoying character. But I understand him as a white guy who's been around that kind of person.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I liked their connection and I liked the way that it worked for me. But for me, I don't know, legitimately the most romantic couple for me that I am moved by in any film is from the film Killer Condom, which is a German horror movie.
It's weird. I haven't seen that. It's weird.
That is shocking. I'll have to jump on that Patreon level and get a worth mentioning or something. What's
that one about? Or do I want to know?
It's about a killer condom.
Okay. Like a physical condom. Okay.
Yeah, basically it's a German movie set in New York, but they're all speaking German. There is a condom that is kind of floating around this brothel, and when men put it on their penises, it bites them off with little fangs.
What in the world? Wait, so I gotta know. Is it a shared? Is it a reusable?
Yeah, well, it keeps like jumping into a new bowl, so people will pull it out, and then it skitters around and goes like. But basically, there is this kind of like hard-boiled detective who's on the case, and he falls in love with this like young gigolo boy who's working at the brothel, and it is like
as one does.
Yeah, no, it's one of the sweetest, like. Very European romances I've ever seen. Anyway, watch Killer Condom, everyone.
Killer Condom. Okay.
The Proposal is also pretty good.
Those seem both like worth checking out. So I will do that. I'll watch it alone and come back with my future review. So
awesome. Thank you. But yeah, so we are going to do a little book and everything else club. But first, remember, you can find more details about all the movies we've watched at our website, alternateending.com. Before we head to our break, you might be wondering about ways to support the show. Get early access and exclusive content, make us watch a movie, pick your own episode topic, and more from our Patreon site, including people at the Oscar level get to choose what Tim and I talk about, or a topic that Tim and I can talk about on the horror podcast, Bride of Alternate Ending. And if you just want to do movies about condoms, I'd be happy with that. Also, I want to thank all our listeners who support the show and make their Amazon purchases through our site. Doing it is easy. Just go to our website, alternateending.com.
Our website, go to amazon.com.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go to alternateending.com, click on our Amazon banner, and seamlessly go about your purchases. All proceeds go towards making our show better. Since our last episode, here are the things that were purchased.
Please have a giant condom.
Unfortunately, no.
No. Okay.
People are still being discreet about that. But we've got books and textbooks. We've got Angel Volume 1, 20th Anniversary Edition, and Parallel Hell, which I assume are the graphic novels. Oh, yeah, we've got Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Hellmouth Deluxe Edition. We've also got George Washington, the American President series.
Quite the dichotomy. Nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Buffy the Vampire Slayer and George Washington. He never fought vampires, but Abraham Lincoln did, depending on who you ask. Under grocery and gourmet food, we have fun, tasty, classic lollipops, fruit-flavored assortment.
Bulk lollipops.
2 pounds.
That's a lot of lollipops.
Ooh, maybe it's a Mother's Day thing, because the next one is Mother's Day biscotti cookies gift basket.
Oh, I am not getting anything probably. Rob gets home on Mother's Day Sunday. I think he's getting home Saturday. He's like, I got to get home for Mother's Day. I'm like, what are we even really going to do? So I don't even know. Alice was like, I just ordered something on Amazon for you on her own. I'm like, what is going to show up at my house? I don't know. It's going to be a cluster. So I'll report back.
I mean, well, if she used the Amazon banner, we might spoil your surprise.
Yeah, right. That's right. She goes like, I got you a giant stuffed mallow. They all order me things that they actually want themselves. So the kids usually get like, I don't know, stuffed animals, and they're like, oh, you don't want this? You don't want to keep this? Oh, sure, I'll take it. But Rob does the same thing. Rob's like, oh, I was thinking maybe you could get like, what did he get me last year? It was something cleaning related. And I was like, this is offensive, but I did want it. It was one of those things where it's like, this is not a great gift, but I do want it. So more to come this year on what I end up with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I would love to know. And I'm sure we'll hear about it on the next main feed alternate ending. But it could be this under home and garden. We have Supla 16 colors, 400-yard fabric ribbon.
Ooh. Could be making some hair bows, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Also under kitchen and dining, we have a 20-ounce mom tumbler with straw and lid.
Oh yeah, this is just mom week. Yeah, I forgot about that. Actually, that tumbler could be Alice. She's always like, I just know that you're always like. One year they got me like one of these like mom wine glasses that's like a tumbler for wine glasses, and I was they're like, we just know that you love to drink that you drink your water out of these things, and I was like, that's not water. They're like, we got you one with a lid so you don't spill. I'm like, okay, thank you. But that tumbler could be Alice.
That's nice.
It is nice, yeah.
And the last one, we got pet food and supplies. We got a pop and play interactive motion cat toy.
Ooh, that could be Tim too. He spoils those cats.
He really does. It's got an electronic smart random moving feather and mouse teaser. Mouse squeak sound optional. That sounds awesome. I want one of these.
I was going to say, Tim might have gotten it for himself. That's also an option. I don't know. So, well, thank you guys for all the purchases. I'm excited to see what all the moms in our listenership get.
Yeah, you got to sound off in the Discord.
Exactly.
Anyway, that is that on Amazon purchases. So let's talk about books. Everything else, TV, things that are not movies.
Not movies.
Do you want to start with TV? Because you were kind of teasing the guilty pleasures that you've been watching recently with Rob out of town.
I'll tell you what it is. It's not that guilty. I literally binge. So when Rob's home, at like 10:30 is my bedtime. Like I usually am like, okay, we get into bed, we watch a show, watch a movie, whatever it is. And then like 3/4 of the way, I'm already asleep. So it's like 10:30. Since he's been gone, I've been staying up till like 1 o'clock in the morning.
Ooh.
And I've been watching house renovation TV. It's not cool in any way, but I binge like the beach bargain hunt, and I have been binging house renovation. There's a couple of them that are new, like on the Discovery Channel. I've been like how to build your own cabin in the woods. I've been like aspiring to do all of these things. But again, like normally I go to bed really pretty early, and now I'm like, I just keep watching like into the night. So I've been dragging all week during the day because I'm like still up at 6 o'clock, but I'm like, why do I keep doing this to myself? But I don't know. I've been staying up watching renovation TV. I feel like for me, it's so like relaxing. I don't know, to just like imagine all of these other cool places you could live.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and look, if you're not watching HGTV, are you even an adult?
Yeah, that's how I feel. My favorite one, I think we've even talked about it one time before, and I binged all of them, and now I don't have them anymore. But if I could go back to it, my TV ASMR was this show called Grand Designs, where it was like the host had this amazing accent, and it was like, I don't even know. It was British. I don't even know where it was from. This amazing accent. But if you haven't seen the show Grand Designs, it is like ASMR TV. He'd come on. He was kind of snappy and mean, or he'd be like, what, you're never going to get your money out of this. Like he would say the honest thing, but with like a chummy laugh. So the people are like, ha, like laugh along with him. But it was people that were so eccentric, and they would go out and pour all of their money into some sort of random home as like a life aspiration or bucket list or goal. So it was like they'd find some sort of like abandoned castle, and they're like, it's my dream to renovate this. And so he'd follow them from like purchase or acquisition of this like random thing into renovating it and sharing it or whatever. And it was, again, it's like ASMR TV for me. I could just fall asleep to the sounds of Grand Designs every night. But I've watched them all.
Lovely.
I know. You have to check it out. It's really, really good. What about you? What have you been watching?
As far as contemporary stuff, I've been watching Moon Knight and Barry. That's kind of what I've been catching up on most recently. Is Rob making you watch Moon Knight, or have you been free since he's out of town?
No, but tell me about that. I'd love to hear about it. Barry, he like a jerk got ahead of me. We watched one. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm really into Barry. This is really good. And then was gone for like a minute, and he just like binged all of them. So now I'm like, I think I would like Barry. But tell me about Moon Knight. I've heard other people talking about it.
Yeah, Moon Knight's the newest live-action Marvel show on Disney Plus. It stars Oscar Isaac as a character who has dissociative identity disorder. So he has kind of two primary personalities. He has Stephen Grant, who's this kind of nebbish British museum shop employee, and Mark Spector, who is this, tortured American assassin guy. And basically, there's a lot of lore, a lot of which is pulled from Egyptian mythology. Mark Spector, he is basically the avatar for an Egyptian god named Khonshu, who's a moon god, and this is where he gets his powers, which seem to be mainly fighting real good. So I don't really know why he needed any powers. I'm gonna infuriate the two people who really like comics, who have listened to us before. Brian Fowler is already
screaming at
tagging me in Discord,
DMing you swears, things like that. Yeah,
basically.
So
yeah.
What's his power? Sorry, I think I missed his power. What does he do?
Well, so, I think I fucking missed his power.
Oh, okay.
Like he's got these little like kind of batarang or like the ninja star things that are shaped like moons. He can like sort of fly depending.
Like if he gets a good running start.
He can heal himself. That's
okay.
Cool. But he's mainly like jumping and punching, and I'm like, yeah, you could have just done this without an Egyptian god's power behind him. I was really intrigued by the first episode, and I thought that so Ethan Hawke is playing the villain in this. He's playing this kind of cult leader named Arthur Harrow. And I thought his first episode was really good, and then every other episode after that, they kind of never figured out what to do with him.
So have you finished the season?
I did. The finale aired this week.
Okay.
I was pretty underwhelmed by the episodes after the first one. It's a 6-episode season. I know people disagree, but it never went in a direction that I particularly wanted. And I know a lot of people were frustrated that it was not very action heavy. I think that is fine for a Marvel show not to be action heavy, but it's very character heavy in a way that's just like really clunky and hits you on the head and just didn't thrill me though.
How does it compare to Loki or Falcon and the Winter Soldier, or like what's the other one I'm thinking of? The one with the guy that shoots the arrows. Hawkeye, yeah. Okay,
well, I think WandaVision is still the best.
Yes.
And then probably Hawkeye. I think Moonlight's about on par. Moon Knight. I cannot figure out what I'm talking about. I think Moon Knight's about on par with Loki, and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, for anyone who listened to a Worthy Binge where we talked about every episode of that, not a fan. So That one's always at the bottom for me.
Okay, because we're in the middle of Hawkeye actually right now. So what we were watching that, this is another ongoing marital dispute of Rob really likes to like sit down and watch a show during TV, and I'm like, or show during dinner. And I'm like, every article I've ever read or anything you've ever heard says that's a terrible idea. You're supposed to like sit down, stare at each other, eat your peas, and make conversation at dinner. But we've gotten into a really bad habit because we've been really like tired lately with work and just so many obligations that like we have gotten lazy and then started like eating while watching Hawkeye. And now it's become a pattern, and I'm like, we got to get out of it. But we're in the middle of Hawkeye, and I'm not hating it. I'm kind of into Hawkeye. Like, it's fine. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, Hawkeye it's a cute, fun show. It's just doing what it wants to do. And I enjoyed it.
Yeah, there's no like, it doesn't feel like there's any major stakes or anything. But I also like the gal that's in it too. That's like the protege or like wannabe Hawkeye. So maybe I'll check out Moon Knight. Moon Knight.
Yeah. I'm sure Rob will watch it and you will be present for most of it, if not all of it. And I think it's totally fine. It was disappointing to me for what I wanted out of it, but that's not like its fault.
Yes. Okay. Well, I will check that out. I'm going to rewatch Grand Designs just one more time. Then I'm going to watch Moon Knight. But again, I've been on a hiatus of all of this stuff. When Rob gets back, I'm sure we'll get back into our TV rhythm. But I have been listening to a bunch of podcasts since Rob's been gone, and I'm excited to tell you about one of them. And
Please.
You've probably already heard of it because you're trendier and cooler than I am. But one of my trendy/cool friends introduced me to it maybe a month ago. But it's usually hard for me to get into a new podcast. I need to like vibe with the presenter. What are they called? Host.
You are one.
I know. I mean, I don't know who would vibe with me, but I need to vibe with them. And so it's usually hard for me to get into it. But this is one called Ologies. Have you heard of this?
I've heard of it, but I don't remember what it is. Tell me about it.
It is Allie Ward, who is the host of Brainchild, which you may or may not have seen. Another show I highly recommend. It is the only show that I watch with the kids that don't make me want to rip my eyeballs out. Like, it's educational, it's fun. There's like jokes for the adults that are teased in there, but at the same time too, sometimes it's like basic science that you kind of forgot about that you're like, yeah, can you explain like how the Earth's crust works again? So it's educational too. They do stuff like, I won't go down a Brainchild rabbit hole, but for a moment, they go into things like, can you really drop food on the ground for the 5-second rule? And like, does that really apply? Like stuff like that. So the kids are really into it. So it's the host of that show that she has her own podcast called Ologies. So I think I was like, maybe a month ago, I was in just a sort of a little bit of like a frump, a lump, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. And so a slump, one of those too. I was in a slump and I was just like feeling like the mouse wheel, like get up every morning, like the same routine. You put the coffee on, you let the dogs out, you wake up the kids, like just that sort of mundane routine. And so this friend of mine had been like, you should listen to the show Ologies. And so there was an episode called Awesomeology. And it was about like strategies in terms of like, how do you find gratitude just in the day to day? Like, how do you keep positivity when like things just feel kind of like wah, wah, wah all the time. So I really enjoyed that episode. It was stuff that like I probably already know. But then here's where it got interesting. So she looks at things from like trains, like how trains work, to like streams, like why streams run certain directions, like things like that. But I got into a 3-part series that I found life-changing on ADHD. And my whole life, I was like, no, I just am disorganized, or no, I don't know. I made a lot of excuses, I think, for like certain behaviors that I have. Rob and I have like an ongoing argument for the last like 15 years about like, where are the keys? Like arguments like that. Mm-hmm. This 3-part series was literally like looking in the mirror of things that are like, they were just talking to me the entire time. Like the entire thing was like, I'm talking to you. This is your life. These are your hardships. These are the things you experience. These are the things you're really good at. These are the things that suck, that you like really, really hate. And I just felt like it was such a like catharsis to listen to the series, because I was like, I don't know. In the past, I've thought about like asking the doctor about it or like talking to somebody about it, and I always shy away because I always just make excuses for it. But I think just hearing something so directly applicable in a way that felt like, I don't know, I didn't feel like they were elevating the good things about it too. Like it didn't feel like it was just like, oh, wow, you're defective. I don't know. I'm really inspired by it. Like, I'm like, I really am going to make the doctor's appointment. Like, I'm really going to do something about it, even though that goes against my nature of like actually taking action. So I'm like, I'm really going to call. I'm really going to make an appointment. And the reason I'm saying this out loud right now is I think that will hopefully keep me accountable for actually doing it, because now I've said it out loud rather than putting it on a list that I will never check the box on for the next few years. And then I'll see it a few years from now and think, I should probably do that. And then not. So that's why I'm saying it. So that's Ologies I've been listening to.
No, that's really great. Because, you know, a lot of, you know, well, especially in America, like our relationship to mental health is really tenuous and really taboo and not very, or a lot of us are not open to talk about that kind of thing. But, you know, just finding a community of people who understand what you're going through, or even just getting a diagnosis in some way, can be really freeing, very liberating.
Yeah.
And empowering. And it can help you find a way to overcome whatever challenges you might face, but also just understand who you are a little better, that's really exciting. And I hope that this is a journey that is fruitful for you.
I know. Yeah. I'm going to check back though, because I hope that like other people, if I like am talking a little bit about the experience too and have been in this sort of the same position, can benefit from it too. Because I literally am coming from square one of got to make a doctor's appointment, like talk to them about it too. They'll probably tell me I'm fine because I'm like super functional, like advancing in my career, doing all these things at work. But like, it's sort of like in spite of myself, you know, like I realize how much harder things are for me than probably for other people to like get work done in the day, or like just again, things that you think are just you, or like your wiring of just like my personality, which are like, I can put things off. I literally had a shovel that was sitting outside on our back porch gathering rust that Rob was like, it became principled. Rob was like, are you going to put the shovel away that you got out? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that. It sat out there for 2 years. Like this shovel, like in a certain spot, it sat out there literally for 2 years. And then, but you tell me, like, Brennan, if you told me that you were going to be in my house in 30 minutes, I can tell you that my house would be like immaculate. It's not right now, but my house by the time you would get here would be immaculate, because like having that like hard deadline of like, somebody's coming, somebody's going to like be here. Like I need to like prepare. And if there's an impact on like somebody else is associated with it, like it's like extreme focus, like extreme speeds, but like it's interesting. And then again, hearing all of that affirmed in the conversation on the podcast I was listening to, again, was just sort of like, oh, maybe it's not just me. Like this is more complicated than that, than just me being this personality. So anyway, I highly recommend this podcast. Like I said, it's Allie Ward Ologies, tons of fun topics that I think could be applicable to lots of different people for lots of different things.
That's really superb. I'm so glad to hear that. Since we're in the podcast zone, on my end, I mean, I listen to podcasts all the time. I listen to Alternate Ending.
I imagine though that there are others that you listen to. So what's the other best podcast you're listening to right now?
Okay, well, I have a short list, but basically, unlike Carrie, I exclusively listen to podcasts that will not make me a better person or improve my life or teach me anything. I only listen to comedy podcasts or movie podcasts.
Oh, really? Oh, tell me your favorite comedy one.
My favorite comedy podcast. I mean, my favorite comedy podcast is My Dad Wrote a Porno. It is a British podcast where, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. Basically, sorry, could you repeat that?
No, you keep going.
Oh, sorry. Okay, you were like mouthing things and I thought I couldn't hear you from the microphone, but no, you're just mouthing them.
No, I was going to just be like, oh, are they really making a porno? But then I was like, that's a stupid question. Don't say it. So I just was going to keep going.
This guy's father, after he retired, decided to write pornographic literature.
Oh.
And it is extremely poorly written. It is very bad, at least on the grammatical side of things. But it's, as far as the imagination goes, this man clearly doesn't understand sex or the female anatomy or much of anything. But his imagination goes such fundamentally strange places that it's this fascinating thing. So they read it out loud like an audiobook. And so it's him, and then he has two friends who react to it.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, basically it's the least, I mean, there's a warning, wear headphones around children. It is extremely graphic and extremely dirty, but it's the farthest thing from erotic.
So is it the terminology that pulls you out of the eroticism? So like to classify something very like scientifically or things like that, or like what would be an example?
Again, the lack of knowledge is shocking. So it part of it is it for anyone who likes bad movies, this is essentially the audiobook or podcast version of that. As long as you have an iron stomach for sexual situations, it is extremely thrilling to listen to. So basically, okay, so the book is called Belinda Blinked. It's now a whole series that they're in season. They just did the 6th book. It's about a woman who works at a pots and pans company in England.
Sexy.
And basically she just fucks her clients and does business deals. And it's halfway a book about business and just the day-to-day of what she does at her job, and halfway a book about this just like intense pornographic situations. But basically he will say things like, her nipples became as big as the like 5-inch rivets that held the whole of the fateful Titanic together.
Metaphors. Those are some graphic metaphors. I see.
I cannot overstate how laugh out loud funny you will crash your car if you are driving. Like you will black out from lack of oxygen. This podcast is. It's very, very good. I enjoy it very much.
Tell me this too. I imagine to be like superbly funny, to like be like over the top funny, to be the best, funniest podcast audio wise, they have to have accents, don't they? Do they have accents?
They do. They're British.
Oh, they're British. They're British. You said that. Okay. Of course. Whenever somebody says something in a British accent, it's just 10 times funnier already. So like, that's like, if it's already hilarious and then they have the British accents, I imagine it is crash your car hilarious.
It is. It's really great. And also they are making fun of the text really, really thoroughly, but the dad, he loves it. He listens to the show. He writes this stuff while he's drunk in his like gazebo out in his house, in his shed.
Amazing.
So he's like, I did fuck up that sentence. Or, he's into it too. It's very, very sweet and fun. The hosts are great. That is important to a podcast. And then they end up revealing, embarrassing things about their own lives. And it's a very funny podcast, but it's also a very interesting podcast to just explore like sexual topics in a really safe space.
Yeah.
And to like, they admit like, oh, I don't understand this or whatever. And, you're also, it's not like you're learning things really, but it's a fun conversation.
That sounds up my alley. I am still learning lots of things. I've said in the past that like most of my car rides with him are educations on things like that. I don't know how it always goes there, but there are many.
It's a conversation with Tim. Of course it goes there.
Of course. Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's always, again, like very like student teacher though, like telling me all of these facts. And I'm like, oh yes, I should have known that. It sounds like something that would be very up my alley because I also am one of those people who's like on the surface very clean. And then I really do enjoy a good like like about like listening to that kind of stuff and like reading stuff like that. So I am totally going to check this out. I promise, starting after this recording, and check out an episode. That sounds really good.
Yeah, no, it's really fun. Are there any other podcasts, or do you want to move on to another kind of arena?
I think that's the one I've been really focused on. But then I think because of that, it's like spinning into these like, oh, now they have like a guest on and I'm actually like following the rabbit hole, which I never usually do. But because I'm so interested in the topics lately of mental health type things, now I'm like, oh, this guest they had on was really awesome. Oh, they also happen to have a great podcast. So I've been doing that kind of rabbit holing, but nothing else I'll flag just yet.
All right. Well, okay. I have a couple books I want to throw out. Are you reading anything right now?
Well, kind of. I'm reading like 10 things, but going back to the earlier revelations, I'm going to tell you something that I've never told anybody, and it's very embarrassing. It's very embarrassing, but I think, and I'm looking at one of them right now, I think I've only finished less than 10 books in my entire life, which is very embarrassing. I'm looking at one of them right now, which is Me Before You. The
Jojo Moyes.
The Jojo Moyes, because that one had me completely sucked in. I'm looking at another one right now, which is the Dan Brown book. What's that called? I can't see that far. What's the one he did?
Angels and Demons?
Angels and Demons. I did finish that. And then That actually might be it. No, I finished the Michelle Obama book. It took me 6 months. I finished Beloved, or no, not Beloved.
Becoming.
Oh gosh, I finished Becoming. It took me 6 months. Currently, I'm reading a bunch of racial equity books because I'm trying to become more educated in my life and as part of my job. So I'm reading White Rage. I've been on page 7 for like 2 weeks now, and then I keep restarting. I'm also reading Keeper of the Lost Cities because Abby, our oldest daughter, it's like her favorite series, and she's read them 3 times through. It's like more books than she's read more books in her whole life than I have. I'm on chapter 2. We're doing a book club at night to keep me on track for that. And then I'm reading White Rage, which is wait, I just said that one.
Yeah, you
I'm
did.
reading I'm reading Color of Law, which is another one about like voting boundaries and like how that's all fucked up. So those I'm reading, I'm like chapter 2 on all of those books roughly. But again, it goes back to that, like, I have to be so immersed and sucked in, and like someone has to be like possibly going to die for me to like continue to the end of a story. So I'm hoping I get better at that, because I do really like the idea of being a really good reader. But right now I'm in progress.
Yeah. Well, of course, and this might tie into the general ADHD of it all also. So you might find a breakthrough at some point.
I know, but I can recommend Me Before You being very solid.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, everyone who reads or ever has enjoyed reading is on a reading journey. You know, it has highs and lows. For me, I've always been a voracious reader, but my relationship to reading changed when I developed my photosensitivity.
Oh.
Because just basically for me, my eyes are really sensitive to high contrast lighting. But also that does eventually get down to like looking at black text on a white page. If I do it for like more than an hour in a session, like it'll start to hurt my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
So that really slowed down my ability to get through a book, to finish things. So there were a couple of years where I wasn't really reading, just because it had become such a frustrating experience for me physically, and health wise. But one thing that helped me kind of crack that open and get back into books was I downloaded the app Libby, where you can connect it to your library card and rent books through your phone or your iPad or whatever you have. And I've been listening to audiobooks. And that really, really opened me back up to the world of reading. So what I do right now is I have a physical book that I do read, one chapter. I try to read a little bit every day, but I try to, just in smaller chunks. But those books are books that are not available on audiobook at all. And then I also am just like constantly listening to audiobooks and kind of swapping between podcasts and audiobooks, because I'm always listening to something. Like if I'm doing chores or driving, like there's something that I'm listening to. But so basically, I don't know how much auditory focus you have, but maybe audiobooks would help you actually get into something.
Yeah, that's what, as you were saying that, and this is like something that I need to like think about for myself, is like I have set sort of standards of like I want to be a reader, but to me the way you said it was interesting too. Like you still said it's reading, and by listening to an audiobook, and I feel like I've been like, oh, for me to become a reader I need to like open the page and I need to like read from end to end to become a reader. But like you're absolutely right, like I don't have to consume it in that way, like I don't have to consume it by like completing it page to page, end to end. Like I do think, like I do listen to a lot of podcasts for focus on things I don't want to do. So like I fold laundry while I'm listening to a podcast, or I like do certain tasks I don't want to do. Like I walk or like go for a jog and I'll listen to audio stuff because it takes my mind off of the thing I don't want to be doing. But I do think maybe that's a really good idea. Like try to like do the audiobook stuff and check it out. So what are you listening on audiobook right now?
I'll tell you in 1 second, but I just wanted to follow up. Yeah, like I highly recommend that because there is this kind of, we have been kind of drilled in this elitist perspective of like, you have to have a physical book, you have to be turning the pages. And obviously, yes, I want the business of physical books to continue working, so they exist. But the elitism, it's very ableist too, because if a person cannot see, if a person is blind,
Yeah.
if they're listening to an audiobook, you can't say, oh, that doesn't count as reading.
Yeah.
They read the fucking book.
Yeah.
Like it's you are getting the text, and whatever way you do, that's reading.
Yeah. No, and I love the way that you
kind of open up your mind to like those alternatives.
Yeah. I love you even saying that, because I always think of it as like, well, I'm not a person that's going to be able to like crank out a book in any sort of amount of time. And so I don't consider myself, again, like a reader. And even though I want to be like desperately, but I that's super interesting to me. I'm gonna think about that too. There's a couple other books that I was putting off, I think, just because I knew they'd be daunting, and I have the 7 in flight right now that I'm attempting to read. But trying the audiobook route, I think, is the way to go.
Yeah, no, I highly recommend it. But anyway, so what I've been reading recently, I just finished Deaf Utopia by Niall Demarco. He's the deaf contestant who won America's Next Top Model and Dancing with the Stars within a 6-month period.
Oh.
And his book, it's like part memoir, part kind of just a social history of the deaf experience in America. And it was really interesting. For anyone who liked Coda, I think it'd be very interesting. And for anyone who didn't like Coda, it's probably a better entree into the world of what it's like to be a deaf person in the US. It's a little didactic in the sense of he repeats a lot of his key points and hits you over the head with them in ways that are a little frustrating. But I did learn a lot, and I thought it was really interesting.
Can you say the title one more time?
It's called Deaf Utopia by Niall Demarco.
Okay. I did love Coda, as you know, so I probably would like it.
Yeah, I think you would. And then other books that I read recently, I just finished The Honjin Murders by Yoko Mizo Seishi. He's basically one of the most renowned murder mystery authors from Japan. And he wrote his books in the period, or actually around the same time that Agatha Christie was writing, like the 20s and the 40s. And but his books were not translated into English until very, very, very recently. A company, I believe Pushkin Press, started translating them into English. The Honjin Murders was the first one they did, and that came out in 2019. And they've been releasing one a year since then. So it's for the US side of things, these books from the 40s are now a new murder mystery series that's coming out. So I just read that. I'm very excited to read the next 2 that have already been published, which are, let me look at my shelf over here. I have the Inugami Curse and The Village of 8 Graves. At least the one that I read, a very, very tightly constructed murder mystery, very fun, incorporates a lot of like post-war Japanese culture and artifacts and things that are very interesting. But they would have been more contemporary at the time, even though the book is set about 10 years after the events of the murder.
Okay.
It's kind of like looking back, but it's still more contemporary than it is now.
And what year did you say these are from?
I believe the Honjin Murders was published in the early 40s.
Okay.
But looking up any sort of history of the copyrights of Yoko Mizo Seishi's works are kind of complicated.
Yeah.
On English language resources.
Is it, and you're listening to that on audio, or you're reading those?
I am physically reading those. The audiobooks exist, but they're not at my library, so I'm physically reading them.
Okay. Well, keep me posted if I should take a year-long journey to try and get through.
Yeah, I really, really liked that one. I'm excited to read more. And also, an audiobook I recently read was Final Draft by Riley Redgate, who is a contributor at Alternate Ending.
Yes. How was it?
It's so good. shout out. You will know Riley Redgate as Rhiannoch Robinson. She's on the Discord. She's also contributed on the website. I really, really, really liked it. I one thing that I really like in young adult fiction is like specificity of culture. And the basically Final Draft found a way to be very intersectional. Like the lead character is a queer, like, person of color, children of immigrants. But it really perfectly strikes the balance of being about people who aren't, like the regular, like, cis straight white people, but also not being about it in a very specific way, but not clearly just doing that to fill a quota.
Sure.
Like, it's very human and very felt, and the story is so engrossing. It's about a young woman who is a writer, and the relationship that she has to a new substitute teacher in her English class, who is challenging her for the first time and making her think about her work and her the things that make good work, and the very, very hard things she might have to do that. And it's a very, very good story that is not one that I've heard told before, and it made me cry.
Oh gosh. So I'll tell you, I'm a book acquirer for sure also.
Of course.
So that's part of my pattern is I love books and the smell of books in libraries. So I also have her copy of that as well. So I am, again, also going to push myself and encourage myself to dedicate, even if it's in chunks, like take it a chapter at a time and get through. I do have 3% of battery left in my computer.
Okay.
But before we go, I would also like to know, is it appropriate for like a 10-year-old, or what's the age level?
Depends on your definition of appropriate. From what I know of you, I'd say probably around 13 is the age you're looking at. There are some cuss words. Okay. There are some more like teenage romantic situations.
Okay.
But for me, I'd say anyone should
any age, 5 and up. Okay, good to know. Although I'm finding out more and more from Abby that she knows more than I think that she knows. So she's
all children do.
No, sometimes she's like, I know that word, and I'm like, ooh, like I accidentally said the SH word the other day. I was just like, I was talking with my friend on the phone. I forgot they were in the car, and it was like jokingly, like I was like, oh, that's some real, I don't know what I said, and it was like, the minute it came out of my mouth, they like looked right. And then Abby just had this like giant grin on her face, like kind of like, yeah, I just heard what you said. And then she's like, don't worry, I've heard it before. So anyway, so she's probably more prepared for it than I am, but that's awesome. I'm glad you read it. And I really, really will also. So thanks for sharing those. I'm excited. You have such a good, diverse set of content that you read. It's always awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, I try. But yes. So yeah, since we gotta run away from your battery, I'll just close out the show real quick. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. You can follow us on social media, find our Facebook, like it, find our Twitter. We're tweeting all the time. Instagram. You can find my reviews, Tim's reviews, interviews that Carrie has done, and lots of other things at alternateending.com. Follow us on YouTube or Facebook. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or Google. Please give us a review. If it's 5 stars, we'd be very grateful. And don't forget to check out our Patreon. And it's gonna be it for today.
We'll catch you next time.